Welcome everyone to the February user, whatever, our whole thing. Anyway, the global user group event here. And today we have, for your listening fun and pleasure, Matthew talking to us how to do Windows Event Collector and stuff. So anyway, you can go ahead and take it away. I mean, we'll dive right on in.
All right.
Everybody make sure you hang out afterwards too.
I will share my screen. I will ask the usual Zoom questions. Can you hear me? And can you see my screen? Double thumbs up mean we can get started. All right, so let's get started. So today we're going to talk about Windows Event Collection, what it is, how does Cribl use it, how we can make it better, how we set the processes, and stuff like that. You'll hear me, for the most part, pretty interchangeably use it between WEC, WEF, and Windows Event Collection. Essentially, they all mean the same thing. You'll hear sometimes the Windows Event Collection, Windows Event Forwarding. I'll use them pretty interchangeably throughout the next little bit. All right, go. Where's my mouse? There she is. All right, scroll down. What is WEC? Let's just start with the very basic question for those who don't know what it is. It is a native Windows process built into the operating system to agentlessly, so no agents required here, to send your event log data. Be clear about this: event log data to a central log location or receiver. In this case, for this presentation today, we are going to use Cribl. Let's face it, it's awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, again, this is all high level. We're not really getting into the Cribl portion yet. But in terms of WEC configuration, generally speaking, how do you configure this thing? There's typically two different ways. One is source initiated, which is basically the workstation is configured to send the logs to a centralized receiver. Or you can do the inverse, where the collector, the endpoint, the server, can go in and fetch data. For the scope of this conversation today and how Cribl designed it, source initiated is all you can do, which is actually, in my opinion, a better way. If you wanted to use native Windows Event Forwarding, which I don't know why you would, source collector is definitely something that you can do. You have two ways to authenticate into this thing. One being certificate-based, which is what Cribl supports at the time. There's also a way to do Kerberos authentication as well. However, it's not supported today. It may be in the future. I don't know. You'll find out. But again, if you were utilizing native Windows Event Forwarding framework, Kerberos is one of your options. All right, cool. Let's start to dive in a little bit into the pros and the cons. Pros: it's agentless. For those who work with your desktop teams, agents are the equivalent of 4-letter words that they do everything in their power to not have you put on a workstation. I've been doing this for a very long time. I have many companies who have told me, oh, my agent only takes blah, 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 and it still takes on a workstation. So this is agentless. It's built into the operating system. On the Windows Event Collection side, it's free. It's already in the operating system. On the Cribl side, obviously, that's how it's licensed. But just on the Windows side, it's free. It's relatively easy to configure. It's been around for a very long time. So you definitely have. It's definitely a little bit on the easier end to configure. With Cribl, it is epically awesome. You get to essentially manage this thing for the first time ever. It's amazing. It's awesome. Then obviously you have options to connect Kerberos versus certificates. Cribl did for version 1, they did certificates. So it's just what you're going to have to deal with. All right, pros comes to cons. It can be a little clumsy at times. It can be a little fickety. I've in my usage of this wonderful setup, WEC itself can be a little fickety, and we'll go over some of the things that I've seen in the past. There are limitations on what you can do with subscription. So obviously, if it only works on the Windows event log data. So if you're trying to do a flat text file server on the system, so where Edge comes into play. So if you want to throw Edge on your workstation, boom, money, you got it done. Then lastly, support with Microsoft on this can be sort of questionable. I've had hit or miss experiences with Microsoft support on getting this thing to work, and so on and so forth. All right, like I mentioned before, WEC authentication methods in Cribl, it's certs. Gotta love me some certs. So there are a couple different ways that you can deploy those certificates. If you are a large enterprise shop with some teams who know their ways around Active Directory certificate services, go give them the world's biggest hug and do everything you can to help them, because they will save you. The ability, you can fully set up the certificate using AD certificate services and just push it right through. It is amazing. If you can do it, it's great. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. Don't worry about it. You can still utilize non-AD certs, self-signed certs. It does get a little, or a few little extra steps that you have to contend with. Cribl on their docs page, you look under the docs or stream use under WEC configuration. There's a whole generate cert page. If you are a PowerShell fan, boom, everything you need is right there. You can copy pasta all the little PowerShell queries and off you go. If you're not a PowerShell ninja and you're more of the OpenSSL Linux side of life, I actually recommend syslog-ng has a good couple pages of instructions in their manual. Again, pretty much copy paste that you can actually generate the same things using OpenSSL. Please, I ran into this issue, and I'll show you when I log into my lab environment that I set up for this user group meeting. Make sure you move the CA cert over to the trusted store. If it's not in the trusted store, it will not work. Self-signed, internally signed, whatever, it's not going to work. It's going to puke all over you. You also need to make sure that, do I have it in the next slide? Let's see here. Yeah, it's actually in the next slide, so I'm just going to go straight there. The same CA needs to sign the client and the server. So in my lab here, I have one Windows 20, I think it's 19 server, and one Linux server that I put Cribl on. The same CA needs to sign both certs. They don't need to be the same exact certs. The same CA needs to sign both certs. If that doesn't happen, bad news bears. Not gonna end well for you. It is also imperative, and I mean imperative, that the network service on your endpoint, in this case, it's going to be a server or your workstation, whatever, that the network service has the ability to read your private key. Again, if that doesn't happen, bad news bears. Not going to work. You also need to have the client authentication. I don't know what the technical term is called. I'm just calling it tag, but I know there's a better word for it. You need to have that on there. That you can do server auth, you can do client auth. You have to have client auth on there. You don't have that, bad news bears. Not going to work. If you have any questions on how to set it up, there's a plethora of information on the interwebs. Google has some great stuff. Cribl has some great stuff. You're not going to have any lack of documentation. Try to get yourself through certs and source initiated. So a few of the things I've learned in my history, and Microsoft was not very, it took me a little bit, and then the KB article doesn't even exist anymore. So I had to go dig in and go and find this, but this is very important that I ran into this numerous times. Don't ask me why they picked 22. It's not a power of 2. It's not a power of anything, actually. You cannot have more than 22 event codes in your subscription. Now, you have multiple queries in that subscription. Sorry, 22 event codes per query. You have multiple queries inside a subscription. You cannot have more than 22. You can have 21 event codes and 5 different queries. Works. The other way around, it's not going to work. It's just going to say like unknown error, not going to work, and you're going to pull your hair out because Cribl will process it just fine. The Windows event log service inside Cribl presents the subscription to the agent just fine. I mean, to the workstation just fine. You go in, it checks in just fine. Then it gets it, and it's like, no, I'm not doing that. So 21 or less. That is your magic number. This one's burned me a few times. So this is using the simple mode. You'll see once we get to the demo here, and hopefully I got a couple more slides and we'll shoot over to the fun stuff. This is for the simple, where you just copy and paste the query. However, if you want to be a little more adventurous, you can use the XML. It came out in 401 or 402. It came out, and in 403 they fixed the suppress path bug. So now you can say, here's what I want, and here's what I don't want. So you doesn't even leave the workstation. So your networking team will love you. So here's some examples. So this is one I found on the GitHub, where these are people who have already generated some WEC XML code. I'm not endorsing this. I'm not supporting this. I'm just bringing it up for your reference for some ideas. So you see here, for example, with Microsoft. Let's pick up this one. Which is this one? You can, for the most part, copy and paste this, and this should work for you. So there are plenty of things. If you don't know what you're trying to find, there are many things that you can out on the interwebs that you can use to hopefully help you out here. See what else we have. We have a few other ones here too. This one actually has a couple pretty good ones. Was it this one? Here we go. Web subscriptions. There you go. This one's pretty good. ADFS, if you want app crashes, bits, DNS, so on and so forth. It's pretty cool. The other nice part, just going back for a second, the other nice thing about Windows Event Log is obviously everyone knows about system, application, security. That's the cute ones everyone knows about. The real cool stuff is actually buried in the application and services log. Things like PowerShell, printing. There's a bunch of other stuff in there that is actually pretty cool that you can pull out with this. All right, moving on. All right, network architecture. Use Cribl to your advantage. Throw a load balancer in front of your worker group. So in my case, basically it's a DNS-based load balancer. We have multiple worker groups, a DNS-based load balancer in front of each worker group. Each worker group can keep track of the bookmark on from each workstation. So when you're pumping in the workstation, the DNS load balancer is going to put you wherever in that worker group that it's connected to. They all know what's the last checkpoint value that you read. If you point it to a different worker group, all bets are off. You're going to re-ingest everything. So one thing with this is obviously you want to keep, once your workstation is pointed to that worker group, that workstation is a lifer for that worker group. Other nice thing about using DNS load balancer is when you want to add more nodes, you don't have to tell your desktop team to add anything. It's all back end because they're going to point to the load balancer. The load balancer is going to point to a plethora of worker groups. Off you go. All right. Last thing to talk about here is what are we going to do with the data and how can Cribl help you? There is a gentleman who is amazing. His name is David Maislin, and he has created many packs for Windows event log data coming in. So If you don't know what the pack dispensary is, it is epic. It is awesome. These are two that recently just got updated by David. Helps you bring in Windows event log data in either an XML or Classic and converts it to JSON. He is also working on creating some packs. I think he's pretty close to it. Don't quote me on that. To also get it to normalize to other log formats. So as you bring the Windows event log data in, put it into JSON, use the field names, then you can use it in other SIM vendors and their normalization models, which is pretty awesome. Any questions so far? All right, silence is fantastically golden. All righty, moving on. All right, can you guys all see my RDP window? Just nod your head. Excellent. I got asked the mandatory Zoom questions. One question came over the chat. We used a DNS-based load balancer. I can chat you over the user community with more details. So, all right, so let's go over some of this stuff, actually more practical. I'm not going to get into how creating certs and all that kind of fun stuff. It gets a little messy, and it's going to be really dependent upon your setup. However, like I mentioned before, a few things just to keep your just a few things to note is first thing is first, your whatever cert you use is completely up to you. I'm going to find in this list. It's here somewhere. There it is. So the operations root CA, that is a certificate that I created, self-signed. It's in there. It's signed my workstation side, also signed the Cribl side. So very important that it's in the trusted root certificates. If it's not, bad news bears, and I'll show you what that error looks like in a minute. On the personal store side, it's imperative that your workstation, that the CN of the cert matches your host name. So that's what that is here. Let me try to make this a little bigger. Oh, just had it. There we go. All right, so for this cert here, I did server and client. Client is just good enough. If you have both, it's not the end of the world. Like I mentioned previously, under manage private keys, it's super imperative that your network service is on there and has full control. If that does not happen, because the network service is really the one that's running the WEC agent per se, the WEC service on your endpoint. So if it can't access that key to work its magic to ship data over, bad news bears. All right, basically you do that, and then under all right, and then under group policy, you also can do this under the registry as well. For my example here today, I'm just going to go through GP edit. So if you go under, there it is. All right, so if you go under computer configuration, administrator templates, Windows components, and then event forwarding, and you go here, click on configure target subscription manager. First of all, you got to turn it on. If you don't turn it on, it's not going to work. And then under subscription managers, under server, this is what you're gonna do. In this case here, this is my example where it's gonna be your host name. It can be any port that you want. 5986 is generally the default port for WEC, but it's Cribl. Cribl equals awesome. Choose any port that you see fit. And then the only other major thing you need to note is all the way at the end, the issuer CA equals something. In this case here, this is the thumbprint CA, thumbprint of the CA, and you can grab that either via OpenSSL, PowerShell, whatever. You do that, you're good. All right, close out of that. All right, now because I've already done this a few times and I've got this working. Once you, I already have the Cribl side working, but we'll get to that in a second. But once you get this thing all working, you're like, how the heck do I test this crazy thing? GP update / force. That's how I've been able to kind of kick it to get logs working. For those of you on a domain and all that kind of fun stuff, it may ask you to reboot at the end. Not required. So in this case here, let it work its magic. Beautiful. All right. And then you're like, how do I even know that this thing even works? So if you go under, try to move this, expand a little bit. There is that obscure folder that over, which is under your event viewer, application services, Microsoft Windows. Where is it? Chromebook with an RDP session sometimes is not the best performant thing. Go under event log and then forwarding plugin. That is where everything you're ever going to know how this thing is working is going to sit. When the thing actually works and you plug in your subscriptions, that is the most beautiful sentence you'll ever read. The subscription, whatever you called it, is created successfully. It's magical. When it doesn't work, I'll show you some examples. When he putzing with this the other night. For example, this is when it doesn't work, it will tell you. It's pretty clear about this. So in this case, I'll try and use Cribl Cloud. I'm just going on-prem because I didn't realize what the CAs and stuff. But in this case here, the Windows management service cannot find the cert requested. Generally, that's going to be a network service issue where you don't assign that the network service can read that certificate. All right, what else do we got here? All right, so that is basically the workstation side or workstation server. If you use Windows, you got this. All right, so let's go over to the Cribl side. So again, just a little refresher on how this works. For this demo exclusively, I set up some quick Volter VPS services. Windows 2016 server is my quote workstation, and then I have a Rocky 9 box to be my Linux server for stream. Running 403. So they're firewalled off, just basically be able to talk to each other, and then I can RDP into the Windows server. So how the heck do you now configure on the Cribl side? Let's talk about this. So this is all what we all love. In this case here, I'm a single node. I'm not even a worker group. I'm that simple right now. But for those of you who have more enterprise setups, log into your worker group, and you're going to go to data sources. Sweet. All right. We all know this page. We all love this page. Oh, where's my mouse? There it is. Can I just scroll down? I'm getting there. Another one. There we go. So over at the bottom, Windows Event Forwarder. That's it. Click. In this case here, I've already created one. So I can make sure that this thing worked before I actually had the demo. And it's pretty much straightforward. Input ID, you're going to call it whatever you want to call it. In this case here, I just called it WEC. I kept it simple. But feel free to call it the same thing across multiple worker groups. It kind of makes your life a little easier when it comes to when you try to monitor who can see what, and you're in that monitoring page with the checkbox. Sometimes it's a little easier to just call it all the same thing. The address, basically you're going to bind it to whatever you want. The port, again, whatever you want. If you want to use 5986 because it works, great. If you want to use 443 because you have a pre-existing firewall rule that you're kind of try to shimmy yourself through, Great, use that. Doesn't really matter. All right, and then over here on the certs. So this is where those certs that you had created previously, either through the Cribl PowerShell commands or through other various interweb sources, this is where you're gonna apply that stuff. So this is gonna be the server side. Don't do the client side, because each client is gonna have its own different cert. In case if bad things ever happen, you have to go start revoking stuff. You don't want to revoke a single cert that controls your entire setup. You just want to revoke that one cert. So in this case here, we're going there. We're going server side client cert in the cert. Private key is your private key for the server. And then we'll scroll down a little bit. And then CA cert. So that's going to be your CA cert from that. Base 64 encoded is the way to go. So if you see the begin certificate and end certificate, you're generally going to be in a very good spot to copy pasta yourself on into this thing. All right, cool. So luckily, Cribl's UX team, shout out. They made it easy. Once you go in and you apply the keys in that other window, you press save, it's just going to auto-populate. It's magic. All right, and then if you want to do other things, minimum TLS version, max TLS version, OCSP, feel free. All right, scroll back up. All right, subscriptions. This is where the fun is. So this is where you can have as many subscriptions as you want, and many queries inside each subscription if you want it. My recommended subscription name, try to have some kind of regional identifier. So if you have multiple worker groups, so say you have US East, US West, EMEA, APAC, stick with those 4. It makes it easier if you add something about where that subscription is coming from. Because when you go back to your Windows event log on your workstation, and you're going to try to be like, okay, what is this thing connecting to? And all your subscriptions have the same generic name of security or application or workstation policy v12. You're never going to know what you're actually connecting to easily, unless you're going to go into the registry or the GP edit and find out. That's one thing that's actually helped me quite well. So we got here, name, version, leave it blank, don't touch it. Raw, that's basically going to be up to you, whatever you think is best. Play with both. So as you're deploying this thing out to your product environment or even your dev, you can set one subscription using raw and the other one using rendered, and just see what they look like. It's one of the powers of Cribl. It's easy. Just get it going, commit, deploy. Money. All right. In this case here, read existing events. So this is again, this is going to be depending upon how you want to set your stuff up. If you want to do point forward, if you want to do everything prior, it's up to you. In this case here, this was a simple dev test thing that I'd set up just for this. Bookmarks, super important. This will save you a lot of grief from your network team for not clogging network pipes. You're also not going to crush other licensing by reading more data than you have to. And then compression, pretty self-explanatory. All right, so again, now actually building the query itself, go up here if I can. This is where you're going to build what you want to see. Now you have a couple different ways of doing this. One is simple. You're basically just going to take, if I can pull over my event log viewer here. You're basically just going to take the name here, the actual log names. Be clear about this. Log name. Don't do event log dash forwarding plugin. Do Microsoft dash Windows dash event log dash forwarding plugin / operational. Use that. That's what that's what you're expecting to, that's what the workstation is expecting to find. All right, so if you go back here, so that's your path. Your query can be as simple as a star, means give me everything. Or you can get a little more complicated. So one of the things I like to do here is I like to cheat. I don't like to hand write from scratch what I want or what I don't want. So what I recommend is you have the ability to create a filter. So here you can say whatever you want. I'll just say give me criticals. Make this up as I go along. I don't know what 3where is, but it looks cool. And then we'll just choose event codes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you can go over here to XML. And that's fine. Microsoft's just yelling at you, say, once you edit it, you can't go back to the easy mode, which is fine because we're not ever going to go back to the easy mode. And then right here, you have your XML already generated for you. It's awesome. Microsoft did all the work for you. And then from here, you're going to copy and paste. And you're actually going to copy and paste. Give me a second here, sorry. This. Copy pasta, this portion. Take it out of here. Hopefully my copy and pasting through an RDP window actually is going to cooperate. There you go. Boom. Nice and easy. If you want to get a little more fancier, use some of those examples from the GitHub articles, or you do your own research and you find some cool place. You also have the ability to raw copy and paste your XML, which is also pretty awesome, because then in one of the links I had earlier, I didn't click on it, but it's the full XPath documentation of every other little widget and weird thing it can do. If you want to say this but not this, where this equals this, probably can do it. You just have to go finagle through the logic. Keep in mind, less than 22 event codes. If you have 22 event codes, not going to work. Less than 22 or 21 or less, however your brain thinks about that. All right, let's see what else we got here on this page. Anything else exciting? Not really. You can have as many. You can have as many subscriptions as you want, many queries beneath each subscription as you want. So it's a great way to get around that 22 limit. After that, we're all Criblinians. We're all fellow goats. Everything else is basically what you know. Pre-processing, post-processing, advanced. Oh, advanced is actually a good one. If you're running self-signed certs, sometimes allowing machine ID mismatch might be something you may want to investigate and turn on. If you're not, just basically play with that setting. The Cribl docs is a great place to go for that one. After that, obviously, quick connect, or you can go to send to routes. In my lab here, for example, where I'm not sending it to any SIM, I'm just sending it straight to the trash can, just for these testing purposes. All right. Another thing you can do too, just giving us some more ideas. Do I want to unsave my not save change? Yes. Another thing you can do too is if you have a dev test and you just have a single worker group, create another one. Call it 5985 or 5987, or call it port 1234, whatever. Doesn't matter. You could have multiple of these. So you could have a prod one, you could have a dev one, you could have a test one. Doesn't really matter. You can do however you see fit. And that's basically my spiel. Thank you guys. Any questions? Thank you guys for attending.
There, I found the unmute. Yeah, no, that was great. As I said, you almost triggered my PTSD on the whole, like, once you hit the log names, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember those. They're so, all those extra logs down there, man, they're just long. And you're right, you just copy and paste them.
it's a treasure trove of awesome. That there's so much good stuff down there.
Yeah,
But you
so
just have to
those
you just have to dig in.
the whole sets of those logs are just absolutely useful. Like they're easier to find print jobs and what the print job did. They're great. But boy, they're convolutedly long names in them sometimes.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Does
But
anybody
it's
else have
important that
any other questions?
again, just to reiterate, choose the log name. Repeat, choose the log name, not the vanity name. Because the workstation, when it receives that subscription package, it's gonna be like, I don't know where this is. So there we go.
Right. Are there any other questions? Also, happy Valentine's Day. Forgot all about that. Well, I didn't, but forgot to mention it here. And Erin, you have your hair different today. Is that true?
It's clean, my man. It's clean.
Say no more. We're good.
There are a few questions over chats here. We didn't use HA. We used a GTM. So I don't have much. I know a lot of people in Cribl have various experiences with HA proxy. I don't have any. I don't have any of that personally for this one.
I suspect it shouldn't be too difficult of a setup. It's really just a DNS load balancer. So
Yeah.
Your Windows boxes will just, what IP do I send it to, and send it, and then it handles everything in between. So as long as you said something about the sessions need to be sticky.
No.
No, okay.
No, because inside the worker group, the worker group keeps track of the checkpoint value within itself. So if you have
okay.
four worker nodes with four, they're all gonna keep track of who's going where.
Okay, perfect. Makes it even easier.
Yeah. So for us, we just basically point the workstation at the worker group load balancer, and after that, the load balancer divvies up the traffic wherever it sees fit.
Perfect. All right. Do we have any other business? Because I don't believe we have our tech tips today. Do we, Tony?
No, unfortunately, our tech tip provider not feeling well right now. So we will resume that next month.
Perfect. We'll resume that next month. And was there any other news that we needed to discuss before we go to swag? Ooh. I should back up so you can see me better. Ooh. Is that being recorded, Tony?
Oh yeah, we'll make a nice little Giphy of that later.
Excellent. All right, so I think that closes our Valentine's Day thing. Oh, I did have one other piece of news, which is I will not be around next month. So if someone else would like to guest host, you could see it's really easy. Like you don't have to do much of anything really. Tony even starts up the Zoom for you. So all technical difficulties get passed to him, whichever side he's on for you. So anyway, if somebody's willing to, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll make do on our own. But let me know. Ping us in the group user group planning channel or something, and we'll figure it out. And also, I'm not actually sure I have a topic next month. Is anybody presenting?
Tomorrow. Erin does have some news though.
Oh, she does.
I have exciting news. So on July 17th.
My birthday.
Oh, is it? Oh,
It is.
it's super fun. Okay, so on July 17th in glorious Las Vegas, where everybody wants to be in July, we will have CriblCon.
Yay!
And so what we'll look to do is have actual content this year instead of just a happy hour. So we'll have like 4 or 5, maybe more customer sessions. We'll throw a hands-on lab sort of a thing in there. And then we'll do just an overview of sort of like the vision, where we're going with all the new products that we've got. So please save the date for July 17th. We're going to get our act together here and get a formal save the date email out soon. But we are pretty good, pretty solid on a July 17th date. So if anybody is interested in presenting, you can present anonymously. Let us know. We think we'll do probably half an hour customer sessions. If you have opinions on what you think should definitely be there or not be there, hit us up. You can just hit me up. You can just put it in the user group channel actually, because it's related. So just throw it in the user group channel in Slack, or you can ping me directly, or Tony directly, or Chris or Mike, or any Criblinian, and hopefully they will get the message to me. But we will love to see you all there.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the birthday's coming up. I'm getting old. Weird things happen sometimes. Okay, all better. I guess that is the end. I think we're done here. So anyway, anybody has an idea for a presentation next month, and it can even be short. We can do short ones. We can do longer ones. We can do all kinds of sizes. Totally happy with all that kind of stuff. And I can even provide some small amount of assistance in, details and figuring things out. And then you too will get your very own slide. So anyway, just let us know in the user group planning session. Otherwise, I'll be pinging a handful of you anyway, because I know you know things. So, alrighty. Otherwise, we'll see you next week, which should be on the 14th again.
Yep, next month.
Nice. That's right. It's February. So, see you all. Well, and I won't see you on the 14th, but someone will see you. See you guys later.